Rochelle Walensky, director of the CDC, announced yesterday that the CDC would be undergoing a major overhaul as a result of mistakes that were made during the COVID pandemic. But the government knows what they're doing. How did they make mistakes? Hey everyone, this is Mr. Constitution. Thanks, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to be talking about an announcement made yesterday by the director of the CDC about major overhauls coming to the CDC as a result of mistakes that have been made during the COVID pandemic. But I thought the government had everything figured out. Mistakes? Now listen, government is a human institution, and of course it's going to make mistakes. But it's interesting that they call them mistakes. Anyway, let's get into this article from the New York Post. The CDC to get overhaul after major public mistakes in COVID response. COVID response mistakes. Interesting. The head of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention announced plans to overhaul the agency Wednesday while admitting to major mistakes in handling the pandemic. Mistakes, huh? Is that what the kids are calling tyranny these days? For 75 years, the CDC and public health have been preparing for COVID-19, and in our big moment, our performance did not reliably meet expectations. Wait, you've been preparing for COVID for 75 years? Good Lord, everyone was right. It is a conspiracy. That's just kind of weird wording there. Let's see. I want us to do better. And it starts with the CDC leading the way, she said, of her agency's more than 11,000 staff. 11,000 people employed by the Centers for Disease Control. In a separate interview, Walensky said of the pandemic response, "It's not lost on me that we fell short in many ways." Fell short. Wow. Okay. We had some pretty public mistakes, and so much of this effort was to hold up a mirror, to understand where and how we could do better. Listen, I think this should be an attitude that the government should have way more of. We saw, especially during the pandemic, this whole idea that we need to trust our leaders, that we need to listen and obey the experts, as if their pronouncements were divine, as if there was no need to question the science, there was no need to question the guidelines, there was no need to question anything. Now, before we get too far, I want to just say I am not anti-vax. I've been vaccinated for many things, not COVID. I think they have a great role. They've done marvelous things for our society. I just have a problem with vaccine mandates. Vaccine mandates. If you want to get the vaccine, if you got the vaccine, whatever, do it. Do what's best for you in your life, and do what your doctor. Listen to your doctor and find out what's best for you. I don't really care if you got vaccinated or not. That's not really my problem. My problem was the government mandated vaccination. That's just so outside the American tradition that the government would literally tell people what to put in their bodies. That is insane that the government would do that. First of all, our government does not have that power. I have a problem with the CDC primarily because it's just not an enumerated power given to the federal government to establish such a thing. Now, I know there's the Commerce Clause, and a lot of people say, well, we can justify a lot of that. And really, the CDC has its roots in a wartime effort back during World War II. The American government had an interest in controlling malaria and making sure that the population was able to, provide for the defense and make sure that the CDC, and make sure that people weren't sick, that malaria was under control, which was a big problem, was a problem in the southeast of the United States, those kind of humid environments. So it made sense for the government to kind of, all right, what can we do to make sure that our people are safe and productive during this wartime effort? There is a national security interest in making sure that that people aren't that we're not being overrun by a pandemic, for sure. So, but it's a little tricky once we get out of that wartime effort. What exactly is the purpose of the CDC? I got no problem with public health, but I think it's managed better locally, because local populations know what they need. That's the beauty of federalism. The beauty of federalism is that your municipality, your county, your state has better ideas, has a better idea of what the population needs in those locations than the federal government does that's thousands of miles away. The federal government should be small and limited to as little as possible. The primary functions of the federal government, according to the Constitution, are making sure the states play nice together and providing for the common defense. The CDC really doesn't have a place there. The CDC, as it's formed now, it's just kind of another big government thing that we like to do, that we've allowed our government to do. As a result, the early 20th century, we kind of started this experiment in big government. And I think we can all agree it's not working out for us. I mean, how free do you feel when the CDC can issue these guidelines and the feds can start saying, hey, all you little municipalities have to start following these guidelines or you're not getting any federal money? That's a problem. It's a problem when the federal government, when more of our tax dollars go to the federal government than our local, than our city or our county or our state. That's a problem. That means the federal government is getting bigger and stronger and more powerful, and the state and local governments are getting weaker because they don't have the resources. They can't stand up. They can't stand up to the feds. When the feds say, hey, you got to do this or you're not getting money from us, that's a problem. That's a big problem. And that's really, I think, where a lot of our problems come from. But anyway, that's a diversion. Let's continue on. She shared a similar message in a video breaking the news Wednesday to staffers, many of whom may be reshuffled in the reset. One person who saw it told Bloomberg. Prior to this pandemic, our infrastructure within the agency and around the country was too frail to tackle what we confronted with COVID-19, she says, according to The Insider. To be frank, we are responsible for some pretty dramatic, pretty public mistakes, from testing to data to communications, she reportedly admitted. This is 100% true. The American people are smart. The American people are able to take things, okay? We have struggled together through many hardships. And it's really bad when we hear the government saying, well, we have to lie to you for your own good. We have to hide the numbers. We have to change the numbers for your own good. As Anthony Fauci was infamous now in saying, right? We have to make sure that we have to lie to you to make sure you take it seriously. That's not our government. That's not how our government should work. That's the action of a tyrant. Even a benevolent tyrant is still a tyrant. And we need freedom. That is what made this nation great, is freedom. The ability for individuals to make choices in their own self-interest to further their own lives. Because when you do that, you have an interest in making sure those around you are taken care of too. Because if you can't do business or conduct yourself in a safe way, in a safe town, if you can't make sure your town is safe, then you can't be free. So anyway, continuing on, my goal is new public health action oriented culture at the CDC, is a new public health action-oriented culture at the CDC that emphasizes accountability, collaboration, communication, and timelines, Walensky said, saying it will help the CDC meet its fullest potential. Look, I agree. Accountability is great. Collaboration is great. Communication is great. The problem is, I think your organization needs to be pared back. I think you should be doing things. The Centers for Disease Control should be an organization for helping the military fight biological weapons, or preparing us for a biological attack, or that kind of thing. It's not meant to be it shouldn't be a public health thing. That's better handled by local authorities. The reset comes after widespread criticism of the slow response to the pandemic, along with mixed messaging on masks, mandates, social distancing, and testing. Yeah, that's because no one knew what was going on, especially in the early days of the pandemic. It was very unclear what was happening. We really didn't know how infectious it was, how bad it was, and I think we just didn't have information. And when the people don't have information, they can't act the way they need to. They can't act to take care of themselves. And we have to rely on the government to take care of us. And that's not what we want. That's not what America was built on. So there's been, there has also been mounting criticism of its response to other public health threats, including the alarming spread of monkeypox. Okay, monkeypox, not as big a deal as COVID, and COVID wasn't really that big of a deal. Anyway, monkeypox is a whole nother thing. Mary Wakefield, 68, who headed the Health Resource and Services Administration during the Obama administration, has already started work this week as a senior counselor to implement the changes. A new executive council is also being created to help Walensky set strategy and priorities, she said. The overhaul is a CDC initiative and was not directed by the White House or other administration officials, insisted Walensky, who became director in January 2021. I feel like it's my responsibility to lead the agency to a better place after a really challenging 3 years, Walensky said. Yeah. How about you just do your job? Just tell us the truth. Help us understand how to protect ourselves, and get out of our way. That's what we need. Americans, we're all adults here. We can all make the choices that we need to make. We're all able to judge for ourselves the risks and the rewards of individual actions. And so we don't need mandates. We don't need you to tell us what to do. We just need the information. We've kind of fallen into this idea in America that the government's job is to keep us safe and to keep us to prevent us from suffering any hardship. Not really. That's not the government's job. You see, freedom is risk. Freedom is risk. And so if you're free, you're going to have to take risks. We have become a very risk-averse culture. We do not actually like to take risks anymore. That's one of the problems. We look for safety. We look for security. We look for comfort. We want the easy life. And who doesn't? Who doesn't want things to be easy? The problem is when you start trading safety, when you start giving up freedom in exchange for safety, you lose both. You lose both, because a government that is strong enough to keep you safe from everything also has to be responsible for making sure you do the safe thing. And so if we give the government the responsibility of keeping us safe, we have to give them the power to do so. And that means they're going to have to force us to do things. It's just like with a child. If you're responsible for raising a child, you have the power. You have the power to make the child do things. That's the whole point. Then once a child becomes an adult, they're more free. They're their own person. They can do their own thing because you're not responsible for them anymore. They have to make their own choices. And the purpose of child rearing is to kind of lead them and help them understand how to make good choices. But ultimately, when they're a child, you're responsible for them, not them. We can't treat the government like our parents. Otherwise, they get to tell us what to do, and that's not what we want. However, Jason Schwartz, a health policy researcher at Yale School of Public Health, stressed that the federal failings go beyond the CDC because the White House and other agencies are heavily involved. Yeah, a CDC reorganization is a positive step, but I hope it's not the end of the story. Yeah, I agree. I think we should definitely reorganize the CDC. Let's reorganize it into oblivion. How's that sound? You know what? Let's just get rid of a lot of federal stuff because our federal government is too big. It's too big. We don't know what it does. We don't know what it's doing. The administrative state has exploded since the early 20th century. We have unelected bureaucrats making regulations that are not accountable. This Rochelle Walensky is not accountable to the people. Granted, she can be fired by the president, but she's ultimately not responsible to the people. All these administrative bureaucrats are not responsible to the people, and that's not good. That's not good. People in positions of power should be accountable to the people, and if they're not, we got a problem. And we've got a lot of bureaucrats in our federal government that have been there forever, that have no fear of losing their job, and they're making all these rules that don't go through any legislator, and that's a problem. So, CDC made some mistakes during the pandemic. Who would have thought? Oh my gosh! No. Yeah, let's just get rid of the CDC. I'm fine with that. Anyway, if you like what you saw here, thanks. Leave a like and a comment. Hit that subscription button. Ring the notification bell so you can get alerted whenever I upload new content. Thanks again for coming by. And stay safe out there, guys. And be free.